Columbus, 1977. 3 female students report rape. The description of the suspect matches. Arrest. The name, Billy Milligan. But in court, a sentence is spoken that changes everything. It wasn't him, it was them. And for the first time in U.S. history, a man is found not guilty because of multiple personalities. A question for you, members of the jury. If 24 people live inside one body, who should go to prison? Case number 1, Billy Milligan, Columbus, the campus of Ohio State University. 3 students report rape. The pattern is identical. He introduces himself as a police officer, shows a badge, asks them to walk to his car, puts handcuffs on them. He was polite, calm, almost gentle, and that is the most frightening part. Because a predator who screams is visible, a predator who smiles is not. A few days later, police arrest a suspect, 22 years old, soft voice, no aggression. His name is Billy Milligan. Fingerprints match. The victims identify him. The case looks simple until the first interrogation, the first crack. During questioning, his tone changes. Not gradually, not nervously, abruptly, a British accent. "My name is Arthur." Investigators exchange glances. He says Billy is asleep, that the one speaking now is not him. After some time, another voice, heavier, with an Eastern European tone. "We did not commit those crimes. It was Ragan." And then a pause. "I am Ragan Vadaskovinic." He calls himself the protector, says he was guarding the body, and this is where it becomes interesting. If this is an act, it is brilliant. If not, we are witnessing something rare. 24 personalities. Psychiatrists spend months evaluating him. Their conclusion sounds almost unbelievable. Inside him, there is not one person. Arthur, a cold British intellectual. He decides who is allowed into the light. Reagan, an aggressive Serb. The protector, physically strong, controls the rage. Alan, charming, the only one who easily talks to people. Tommy, skilled with locks and electronics. David, the keeper of pain. Adelana, a female personality, and she is the one who confesses to the assaults. Now pause. If Adelana committed the crime, is Billy guilty, or is this still one man? The spot. Psychiatrists describe an internal system. There is the spot, the light. Only one personality can stand in it and control the body. The others remain in darkness, watching, waiting. But there is a problem. The switches are not always objectively verified. Some manifestations intensify during therapy. Later, some specialists will suggest there may have been a suggestion effect. And here, the case becomes dangerous. Because if it is suggestion, who is creating the personalities? The patient or the doctor? A historic precedent, 1978. The court declares Milligan not guilty by reason of insanity. The first case in U.S. history where a man is acquitted because of multiple personality disorder. No prison, a psychiatric hospital. The country divides. Some say, he's sick, it's childhood trauma. Others, he's manipulating the system. And here is what makes it even more interesting. In the 1970s, the diagnosis of multiple personality was extremely rare. After the Milligan case, the number of similar diagnoses rises sharply. Coincidence? Or the power of precedent? The facts that complicate everything they documented. Different accents, different handwriting, changes in facial expression, different levels of intelligence. But the central question remains, can someone play a role that deeply, for years, under constant psychiatric observation? Or is the human mind truly capable? Case number 2. Vince Lee, July 13th, 2008. Canada, province of Manitoba, highway near Portage la Prairie. An ordinary intercity bus is heading toward Winnipeg. Fields, asphalt, the quiet hum of the engine. No storm, no conflict, no screams, until a certain moment. 19 no. Boarding a man of Asian appearance buys a ticket and gets on the bus. Quiet, calm, unremarkable. Nearby sits 22-year-old Tim McLean, headphones on, heading home. They don't know each other. They don't speak. Nothing foreshadows what is about to happen. 20:30. Silence. Passengers are dozing. Someone looks out the window. Someone scrolls through a phone, and suddenly, Lee abruptly stands up, pulls out a knife, and begins stabbing. No scream, no warning, no words. Timothy doesn't even have time to stand. Panic. People rush to the exit. The driver stops the bus and evacuates the passengers. The doors are locked from the outside. Lee remains inside, alone, with the body. When police arrive, a scene unfolds that witnesses will remember for years. Lee decapitates the victim, shows the head through the window, waves it. He is calm, almost detached. Not rage, not hysteria. Cold conviction. Question number 1. Was this a burst of aggression? There was no conflict. Was it hatred? They were strangers. So what happened on that bus? The diagnosis, a psychiatric evaluation determines severe psychosis, paranoid schizophrenia. Lee says, "I heard the voice of God. He told me the boy was a demon. If I didn't kill him, he would kill me." Voices, persecutory delusions, religious hallucinations. For him, it was not murder. For him, it was a mission. Doctors conclude that at the moment of the attack, he was not aware of reality. The trial. In 2009, a Canadian court finds him not criminally responsible due to mental disorder. No prison. A high-security psychiatric hospital in Selkirk. The public is in shock. Timothy's family, furious. For parents, there is no difference between psychosis and a knife. A strange detail. Before the tragedy, Lee had no criminal record, worked, was quiet, showed no aggression, but in the weeks before the killing, insomnia, talk of a mission, withdrawal, refusal to take antipsychotic medication. The illness did not appear on the bus. It was developing, and it was not stopped. After the trial treatment begins, antipsychotics, observation, years of therapy, and then something happens that divides the country into two camps. The voices disappear, the delusions fade. He begins to understand what he did. According to doctors, when reality returns, he experiences deep shock and remorse. 2012-2015. He is gradually granted supervised outings, first walks, then the city, then work. Each year, the review board states, the risk of reoffending is extremely low, but for Timothy's family, risk cannot be low. It either exists or it doesn't. 2017, final decision. The court grants him an absolute discharge. He changes his name to Will Baker, lives in Canada, no supervision, no conditions, no guard. Since his release, not a single crime, not a single incident. Statistics are on the side of medicine, but fear is not statistics. And now, the main question. Members of the jury, if a person hears a voice that is more real to him than yours, if the brain erases the line between a demon and a human, if he sincerely believes he is saving the world, is he a killer or a patient? Canada chose the second. It said, he was ill. We treat illness. We do not seek revenge. But justice is not only law, it is also feeling. The final question, where is the line? If illness fully explains, should it fully excuse? Or are there crimes after which freedom is impossible, even if the mind, not the man, is guilty? In this case, there is no serial monster, no plan, no history of violence. There is one episode, one psychosis, one knife, and one life that will never return. The decision is yours. Case number 3, the Galvin family. A genetic trap? Hidden Valley Road, 1960s, Colorado Springs. A quiet street, Hidden Valley Road. A white house, a flag on the lawn, a father with military posture, a mother with strict Catholic discipline, 12 children, the perfect American picture. But if you listened closely, there was too much silence in that house. The father, the mother, the facade. The father, a U.S. Air Force officer. The mother, religious, strict, socially active. On the outside, a model family. Inside, growing tension. The first to break is the eldest son, Donald. He hears voices, says he is being watched, believes classmates can read his thoughts. Diagnosis: schizophrenia. But in the 1960s, that word sounds like a sentence, not an illness, a stigma, and this is only the beginning. One by one, a few years later, symptoms appear in another brother, then another, then another. In the end, out of 12 children, 6 will be diagnosed with schizophrenia, half the family. Statistics collapse. The lifetime risk of schizophrenia in the general population, about 1%. Here, 50%. This is no coincidence. This is a genetic time bomb. A house where whispers are louder than words. One brother claims the devil lives in the basement. Another insists he is Paul McCartney. A third hears commands to kill. At one point, one brother shoots another. The voices become more real than family, but the parents keep it inside. Treatment is shame, psychiatry is stigma. The neighbors must not know. The facade matters more than the cracks. Growing up in a minefield. The healthy children grow up in chaos. They learn to hide symptoms, to stay silent, to smile in public. The house becomes a field of mines. No one knows who will ignite today. A brother can be gentle in the morning and dangerous by evening. Schizophrenia does not just fracture the mind, it fractures trust. Science arrives. Too late, years later, the family becomes the subject of major genetic research. Scientists study their DNA. They search for answers. A mutation, a combination of genes, an environmental trigger. Because of the Galvin family, research into the biology of schizophrenia moves forward. Their tragedy helps science understand more, but that comes later. Too late for those already broken. The hardest question, members of the jury: what destroyed this family more, the illness itself or the denial of the illness? If treatment had begun earlier, if there had been no fear of social judgment, if the diagnosis had not been hidden, would the story have changed, or had the genetic roulette already been set in motion? The ending. The Galvin family is not a story about madness. It is a story about heredity, stigma, fear, and the illusion of perfection. 12 children, 6 diagnoses, one house where demons sounded louder than prayers. And now the choice is yours. When illness runs in the blood, who is responsible? The genes? The parents? A society that forces silence? Or no one at all? Sometimes tragedy is not someone's fault. Sometimes it is simply a genetic trap. Case number 4, Genius and Madness. John Nash, 1950, Princeton University. A young graduate student walks the corridors, avoids conversations, writes formulas on glass. He doesn't like people. He likes patterns. His name is John Nash, and if you looked at him then, you wouldn't see tragedy. You would see a strange, withdrawn mathematician. Within a few years, his ideas will change economics, strategy, the theory of conflict. It will be called the Nash equilibrium. A simple thought, almost audacious. A system can remain stable even if everyone acts in their own self-interest. And here lies the irony. His theory describes stability. His own mind will not remain stable. The first crack. Late 1950s. Nash is already recognized as a genius. Teaching. Married to Alicia. And then, strange claims. He says he is receiving messages, that newspapers contain encrypted signals, that world governments are communicating with him through codes. Pause. All of us sometimes see coincidences, but he begins to see structure where there is none. For a mathematician, that is especially dangerous. His brain is trained to detect hidden systems. Now it finds them in chaos. Emperor of Antarctica. He writes letters to embassies, signs them, Emperor of Antarctica. He is convinced there is a conspiracy, that he is a central figure. This is no longer eccentricity. This is psychosis. Diagnosis? Paranoid schizophrenia. And here begins the hardest stage. Treatment: hospitalization, insulin shock therapy, antipsychotics, locked wards. The medication dims the delusions, but it also dulls the sharpness of thought. Imagine that your identity is built on intellect, and you feel it fading. Which is worse, to live with voices or to live without clarity? Nash makes a choice. He stops taking the medication. The strangest part. The voices do not disappear. They remain. But something happens that doesn't fit a simple narrative. He begins to ignore them. Not argue, not obey, not believe. Later he will say, "I decided not to listen to them." Here is the paradox. A mathematician applies rationality to his own delusions. He does not defeat the illness. He learns to coexist with it. Not a miracle, not a sudden cure. Years, quiet, slow, without applause. A beautiful mind will portray it beautifully. In reality, it was harsher. 1994. Stockholm. John Nash receives the Nobel Prize for work written before the illness. Think about that. The world rewards him for formulas created before his mind fractured. He returns to academia, but the question remains, was he cured, or did he simply learn to live beside schizophrenia? A dangerous myth society loves a beautiful story. Madness is the source of genius, but that is romantic and dangerous. Most people with schizophrenia do not become Nash, and most geniuses do not hear voices. The illness destroyed his career for decades, strained his marriage, isolated him. This is not poetic madness. It is hard neurobiology. The uncomfortable question. And now, you. If you remove the illness, does the genius remain? Or was that same unusual wiring of the brain, that tendency to see hidden structures, that sensitivity to abstraction, also part of what made him Nash? Can talent be separated from psychosis? Or are they two sides of a rare configuration? 2015. A car accident. John Nash dies alongside his wife. A man who outlived his own mind, who refused to be only a patient, who learned to live beside the voices, but did not let them control the equations. This is not only a story about genius, not only about illness, it is a story about choice. Submit to chaos, or attempt to negotiate with it. And now, your verdict. Genius and madness. Enemies or neighbors in the same mind. Case number 5, Gennady Krokalev, 1970s. Perm, an ordinary psychiatric hospital. Locked wards, quiet corridors, patients who see what others do not, and one doctor who asks a question that can cost a career. What if they are actually seeing something? And here begins a story where the line is not between sanity and madness, but between science and belief. A dangerous idea. Krokalev works with patients suffering from alcoholic psychosis and schizophrenia. They describe faces, monsters, shadows, beings in the corners of the room. A typical psychiatrist records symptoms, prescribes antipsychotics, reduces delusions. Krokalev chooses differently. He decides to test a hypothesis, not philosophically, technically, the experiment. He creates a darkened room. A patient wears a mask with a camera fixed near the eye, the lens directed toward the pupil. The idea sounds almost fantastic. If a hallucination is not only an internal image but some kind of external projection, the camera will capture it. Pause. This is a delicate moment. Because if he is right, a hallucination stops being merely a brain distortion. It becomes something visible. Some patients say, "There it is, right now, in front of me." Krokalev takes the picture and claims, "On the film appear blurred silhouettes, spots, contours, sometimes matching the patient's description." The first crack and trust colleagues respond coldly. Some say, film artifacts, development defects, light noise, expectation bias. Others distance themselves. In the late USSR, the boundary of acceptable science was narrow. Any hint of objective visions sounded too close to mysticism, and mysticism is not medicine. Missing materials. Krokalev claims he sent results to Moscow. Some archives, according to him, disappeared. He speaks of pressure, of the topic being shut down. But here's the important point. There is no documented confirmation of large-scale confiscation. There are his words and growing isolation. Here begins the psychological paradox. When a person is told his theory is wrong, he either abandons it or begins to see resistance as proof that he is right. The hardest question. Members of the jury, what is more likely? That the doctor proved the objective nature of hallucinations and the system was frightened, or that he gradually believed his own hypothesis so deeply that he stopped seeing its weaknesses? A psychiatrist spends years staring into other people's delusions, into other people's shadows, into other people's beings. Can he one day begin to take them too seriously? The final act, Gennady Krokalev, is found dead. The official version, suicide. Colleagues speak of depression, professional isolation, disappointment. But supporters of alternative theories ask, did he come too close to the boundary? And here, we must be careful. When evidence is scarce, fantasy easily takes its place. Cold analysis. The scientific community did not accept his conclusions. The experiment lacks reproducibility. Control conditions were questionable. The photographs are open to interpretation. No independent study has confirmed the possibility of objectively recording hallucinations. That is an important fact. But there is another. The idea itself was irresistible. Because if hallucinations can be photographed, then this is no longer only psychiatry. It is intrusion. Gennady Krokalev wanted to prove that patients were not simply losing their minds, that they were truly seeing something. The question is different. Was he expanding the boundaries of science, or stepping into a space where psychiatry begins to turn into mysticism? Sometimes a researcher stands at the edge of an abyss, and the longer he looks into it, the harder it becomes to understand who is looking back. The verdict is yours. Was it science or a man who crossed the line himself?